This is the Three Skeevers podcast.
All right, episode 24 of the Three Skeevers podcast with Grim from Grimsforge Gaming and myself, Icy with Icyfire Gaming. How you doing, Grim?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. I had a lot of fun last night with our little pet sork outing that we did down in the sewers. That was a lot of fun. And I think one of the highlights was when I know Zero Moss is gonna like this. We we were down at Moloch Ball, and we were like, you know what? Let's go try and get Zero Moss since he's down in the sewers. And then as we were running back to EP base because we know his little hiding spot, he logged off, and we're like, oh crap. So then we just kind of took our time getting back, and then he logged back in. So we're like, okay, so it's back on. And then we were going to do the little trick that they like to do, which is message somebody right before they gank them and say, hey, there's something blue on your back. So we did the same thing, but I messaged him and said, hey, there's something yellow on your back. And then we ran out to his spot and we killed two other EP that were just kind of lounging around outside the base. And he was nowhere to be found. And we're like, oh, well, this kind of sucks. But then he messaged me, and then I kind of knew where he might have been, and then we killed him right afterward. But then he called us a bunch of flippin' zerglings, and he didn't say flippin', if you know what I mean.
So. Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, there's three of us, but we're all rocking 3 pets apiece. So
yeah, so there's really about like 10 of us.
Yeah. So it looks like a legion.
Yeah. So that was pretty fun.
Yeah.
All right. So today we have a special guest. Hack the Minotaur. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Hey guys, thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, thanks for being flexible with the times and everything. That's been really easy to work with you.
Oh yeah, cool. No problem. I know we've been talking for like a couple months. It seems like trying to get this scheduled, but yeah, no worries.
Yeah, we're here. We're here.
Yeah.
Cool. So, Grim, what do we got for today?
Well, I guess the first thing is obviously Flames of Ambition is here, and I guess I kind of want to move ahead. We've got an itinerary sitting in front of us, but there's one thing in particular I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on, and I guess we'll lead with that. But how excited are you for the companions coming up?
Very excited, I would say. It's cool. It's something I didn't think we would see. I wasn't really expecting it to come out, so it's kind of a surprise. But I think it'll be a good addition. Yeah, should be interesting for sure.
We've had people that are like already testing it and messing around with it, and they're like, yeah, you literally can equip, they have an action bar, and you can put the actions, and based on where you drop the actions, and I guess they were showing pictures of, my guy's a DK, here's his rotation, here's his abilities and stuff.
Yeah, they showed some interesting stuff at the live event that they did, a couple days ago with that. And it was interesting. The one that they showed was like a DK. So he had like chains. You could use chains. You could use, like whip. There was healing abilities. So he had like cauterize. So yeah, it'll be interesting. My question is like, is that specific companion like the DK companion? And like the other companion is going to be a different class, or does it change? We know that they're going to get more skills as they level up. So I wonder, will they like unlock more class abilities and have like all of them?
Yeah. Well, then that'll make me a little jealous because I wish that I could pick and choose for my different classes, their abilities.
Right. Yeah. I know some people want that, just to open up everything.
Yeah. Well, maybe with the introduction of a new class at some point, maybe there's something along those lines that would be really cool. So do you have plans for you and your companion?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's cool what they're trying to do. They're basically trying to open up the game to more like solo gameplay, not just solo necessarily, but for maybe players who aren't as proficient at the game, and try to open up options for them. Like, say you wanted to go into a dungeon and try to do the dungeon because it's a cool zone and you've never done it, and you've had trouble getting a group for it. Just take your companion and maybe your companion can heal you while you solo the dungeon. So I think it's a cool concept. Um, I always thought it would be cool to do like a solo instance of the dungeon where they would like scale things down a little bit, because really I've I've done videos and stuff on this in the past, and had comments on it where there's a section of players who just don't do any dungeon content because they can't, like, they're not at that level yet, right? Like, they don't want to queue for the group. They feel like their DPS isn't good enough, or they don't know the mechanics yet, so they don't want to embarrass themselves playing through the dungeon. um which kind of sucks because the dungeon content is really good in this game. Like, some of the dungeon zones and the storylines, they're like top notch. They're like really good. Like, if you look at the new ones, like Black Drake Villa is a really fun dungeon to play. And I know that there's people out there who just aren't playing it. They didn't even purchase the DLC because they're like solo players, right? Like, I don't do dungeons, but if they have this companion system where it can kind of help them get through that and experience more content, I think it's a good idea.
And I think from what I heard from one of my buddies, like since I usually just play support classes all the time, I could do a dungeon or like two-man in quotes the dungeon with me on support and my companion as a DPS class, because from what my buddy told me, I'm not sure if he was lying or not, but the companion can do like 65k DPS for a parse.
I've not heard that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he was just messing
I
with me
don't
or
think that's
not,
gonna
but
happen.
because I think your companion could do like any role that you outfit them with, and if you're putting, pretty good gear like trial set gear, or like Leviathan and Deadly or something on a companion Templar,
Yeah.
that's what the second one's going to
It
be. I would
So
expect some pretty good numbers.
so one thing to keep in mind is they're not gonna companions won't be able to weave abilities necessarily. Like, one thing they showed in the showcase is they have a skill bar, right? Like an action bar, but it has cooldowns. Their abilities have cooldowns. So your companion's not going to be able to weave like a DPS ability. They're going to have a DPS skill cooldown, another DPS skill cooldown. So 65k, I think, is going to be pushing it. I think probably quite a bit lower. Like, I would imagine maybe 20 to 30k if we're lucky. I think it'll be more useful as like having a tank, like taunt the boss for you so you can go behind and DPS, or having your companion as a healer to keep you alive. I think those might be a little bit easier to do.
Yeah. And do you know how exactly you can use the companion in terms of like a group setting? From what I heard was that if you have three people in your group, then it would allow you to summon your companion as the fourth person for your group. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I think so. I think they did clarify that, where it would take up whatever remaining group slots you had. So if it was you and a buddy, then each of you could summon your companion and then be at 4.
Okay, copy.
Yeah.
that's cool.
So
That's
like
really cool.
trials, it's not going to be, like packed with companions. It's whatever. I mean, I think that's what we're looking at. It's going to fill whatever group slots are open.
Yeah. My companion's gonna hate me because I'm gonna be taking them into Hell Raw Citadel, just me and them versus the world, They're gonna be going around with me getting slaughtered. We're gonna try and solo all the vet dungeons,
That's a
or
little boss for an hour.
yeah, solo a boss for an hour. So it'll be fun though. I think that's such a cool thing that they're adding, and I never thought of that though. I guess it's really a perfect thing for those people that they are playing an MMO, but they really just kind of want to do their own thing, and now they have somebody that they can still kind of just do their own thing with.
That
I
actually
mean,
reminds me, I did see a video of a guy doing the Unhallowed Grave hard mode by himself with four characters because he had four computers that he had purchased ESO Plus on, and he had, oh, what was it? I think it was a Warden tank with a DK. He was on a DK DPS, and then um, two other Sorks as DPS as well that were just kind of AFK in Mistform with their matriarchs doing damage, and his tank was also in Mistform tanking the boss the whole time while he was doing
Wow.
damage. Yeah, it was pretty wild.
Misform for the win.
Yeah, Mistform for the win. He's running that
The infinite Mistform trick. Yeah.
infinite Mistform. So
Hmm.
yeah.
But what were you gonna say, HTM, before I started?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a cool concept. Some players, it's an MMO, but they dig like the social aspect of it, where like crafting and zone chat and all that stuff. But when it comes to like tougher content, they might not be brave enough to try it. So hopefully it'll kind of close the gap a little bit and get people to try some of the content in the game that's really good content, the dungeons especially.
Yeah. Well, Flames of Ambition's here right now. What's your thoughts on everything so far that you've been able to dive into it for a little while?
I think it's good. I mean, it's a lot bigger of an update than I expected. For like a quarter one update. I think when you look at the CP 2.0 system and everything that they did with the character stats, changing around all the base stats, a lot of changes with like weapon passives, armor passives. It's a lot. Like you can tell they put in a lot of work to this update, and it's a dungeon update too, right? Like it's a dungeon DLC, but beyond the dungeons, which both are really fun to play, it's a massive update to like the core mechanics of the game. So it's big. It's a big update.
Yeah. Yeah. Just the changes to armor and the changes to weapons alone, and then you throw the CP situation in there, and yeah, like there's no clear-cut meta right now. So it's been really cool in the PvP realm,
Yeah, I mean, I'm impressed. I think during COVID that the fact that they're able to pull off this huge update is pretty impressive. And they're trying to improve the game, whether they're just improving performance, systems. It's not like a super flashy update. I think same thing with Blackwood, the new chapter. It's not like super flashy or anything, but they're really just trying to improve the overall quality of the game moving forward, which I think is good.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the fact that they did the testing in Cyrodiil. They wanted to do the no proc testing, and it was extended, or it was initially going to be really long. Then they shortened it, and then they've shortened it again. But everyone that I talked to, for the most part, I would say probably 80% of the PvPers that I talk to are happy with PvP, the state of PvP in Cyrodiil without the procs. But I would say the numbers are growing a little bit. Maybe it was like the new shiny thing, no procs in Cyrodiil, but now it's as people start figuring out the meta and how to survive and damage and stuff like that. Now they're like, man, I really wish we had our procs back. And so I kind of sense that a little bit. But what's your thoughts on that with the proc sets? Do you have an idea on what they should do from PvE to PvP and how to handle procs, and what's your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, if you think about how many proc sets are in the game at this point, they're just adding them all the time, right? Like every DLC, it's like more proc sets. Which I mean, I understand from like a marketing standpoint, those are interesting sets. Like it makes you want to buy the DLC probably and pick those up. But I honestly don't know. At this point, you have so many proc sets, and even sets that some people wouldn't even qualify as a proc set. They count as a proc set, right, for the Cyrodiil
Yeah.
testing. So I don't know. I mean, I don't really play Cyrodiil. I'm more of a BG guy, which proc sets are still open in BGs. So yeah, I don't know how it's gonna end up if they just remove proc sets completely. What's that gonna look like? Are you guys liking it in Cyrodiil? Like, would you still play?
Well, I said jokingly going into the no proc testing, like as soon as they started it, I said, watch what's going to happen. At some point, everybody's going to start begging for their proc sets back, and then we're kind of there. But I think my only thing with it all is I'm okay with proc sets as long as they're balanced. And balanced is the key word that's so hard to, it's subjective. Like, like people, I could say something's balanced and you could say, no, it's not balanced at all. And, and then the debate begins. But I think at the end of the day, my biggest concern is this. Like, I was just running a battleground yesterday and I got hit for 8,200 by Unfathomable Darkness. And the same player hit me with his Dawnbreaker for 5,200.
Yeah.
Like, why is Unfathomable Darkness hitting me for 3K more than
I
his
think I was
Dawnbreaker?
in that same BG. When did that set start hitting so hard?
I don't know. It's so crazy though. And granted, I need to go back and watch that and see what's going on. But he's hitting me with a Dawnbreaker for 5,200, and he's hitting me with a Unfathomable Darkness for 8,200. So that's crazy. I definitely think the proc set shouldn't be hitting as hard as ultimates. And so if we can get all the procs in line with an ultimate to add value to the ultimate, or make the ultimate be what it's supposed to be, it's the ultimate. That would be cool. But that's kind of a thought for me. And the other thing too is shouldn't be able to stack multiple of the same proc on an individual person. So like I shouldn't be able to put my Vatishran staff on you, and Icy shouldn't be able to put his Vatishran staff on you, and then the 12 other guys behind us, and just melt you. And so they need to make it, it should be like a unique buff or a unique debuff, and only one could be on the target. And we could even say it's whoever initiates first, there you go. So
what about like one player who's running 3 proc sets? Like,
that's so scary.
Would you be down for like a proc cooldown on the player? Like you can only proc something once every 4 seconds or 5 seconds or something?
Yeah, I don't know. I do know. Go ahead, Icy.
I think, I guess my things with procs is that I'm okay with them, and I agree with Grim, what Grim was saying about they just shouldn't stack, because they have some things in the game. I guess we'll take that Vatishran staff for an example, where if you apply Ellie Drain to an enemy, say, I do mine first and then you do yours second, yours will remove mine, so I won't see the debuff active on that boss anymore, and it'll refresh because now it's a new one on you, and then that's about it. So I think in those cases, if I'm using my Vatishran staff on somebody and you can see the laser between us, if you're gonna throw yours on the guy, it either shouldn't go or it should overwrite mine, and then that'll cancel my link and then refresh with your link instead. I think that's the way it should be. And another example would be guard, right? When you tether with somebody, if someone was like, oh, let's just double or triple guard up, like we'll daisy chain the things together so we can get like a guard train going on. You can't do that, because once someone's got a guard on, no one else can put guard on that person. And I think that's how a lot of things should work. If somebody's trying to, put more stacks on somebody, especially when they're damage type stacks, they should just refresh it, but not double it. or not double it, stack with it. I think that would be a
Yeah.
much healthier approach, because I think radiating regeneration, you can stack that, I think, what, 4 times, 8 times, a bunch of times, and that's fine. I think that's okay, because it's a HOT. It's something that helps you and your allies and stuff. But when it comes to damage, that's a bit too much, in my opinion.
Yeah, I had to switch over to off my headphones. They stopped working for some reason. But here's another thing too that's a little strange about the proc sets situation. Let's say that person is like you were talking about, they're running 3 different proc sets, and we'll talk about the cost of damage. If you were running a stat-based build, a stat-based play, you're out in a BG and you're running Eternal Vigor and Shackle Breaker, stat-based, regen and stats, and you run against the proc set user that's using the 3 different proc sets, and let's say they have it lined up to where they can get Is There No One Else released a video. This was a couple months back, but all he did was went in with just poison injection, and 3 different proc sets going off, and he's like, here's BG with me going 21-1, just hitting one button, and I did 1.3 million damage. And the cost of damage, the expense of doing damage, that person is able to pump out way more damage. And so a lot of people would say, well, I don't have the max stats that you all have, or I don't have the recoveries that you all have, when you're running like a Shackle Breaker or Eternal Vigor or whatever it is. And that's true, but you don't need it when you only have to press one button to do 1.3 million damage. And you'll have the stamina to break free. You'll have the stamina to dodge roll, because I only have to hit one button to turn out my damage, as opposed to them having to, work for their kills and work for their damage and work for their heals. And so that's kind of a thought process. It's such a weird balance. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I wish the proc sets would be brought more in line with ultimates. I think should probably be the ultimate damage, that you pump out in a battleground. So that's kind of my thoughts. I don't know. A lot of people disagree, and then some people will say, yes, let's make that happen. So I don't know. What's your thoughts on a person rocking 3 procs versus the stat-based builds?
I mean, I agree with you. There should be some kind of like disincentive to doing that, and at this point, there's really not. Especially in the battlegrounds, players are just going to die so quickly, like 3 procs and they're dead, and you didn't even use any resources. So saying that you don't have as much recovery or max stats doesn't matter.
Right.
What about a no proc BG test? What do you think about that?
Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, BGs are full of procs right now. That's where people go to get their procs on. So it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I bet the outrage, there would be a lot of people that would be very upset if they tried to do testing on that. Don't you think? Like there was a handful of people that were upset when they said they were going to do that in Cyrodiil. And so what those people that are hell-bent on using procs or crutched and need the procs or whatever it is, they enjoy the procs. Those people, half of them probably didn't complain too much about losing Cyrodiil for procs for a time being, because they're like, well, I could still use them in Imperial City, or I can still use them in grounds. So I don't think you take them simultaneously away from both Cyrodiil and battlegrounds. That will avoid some problems.
And I mean, if the goal is performance based, I mean, I don't really see a lot of performance issues in battlegrounds. I don't know if you guys do.
There's times where I can't bar swap or abilities, but the moments in battlegrounds are it's usually from desyncs, from a bow snipe or magnum shot or a flame clinch, and then you can't bar swap or you can't use abilities. But yeah, it's still, even in those moments, plays way better than Cyrodiil.
Yeah.
So what do you think so far about the CP changes, and what's your thoughts on the CP and build diversity right now?
Yeah, so CP changes I think are good in general. I mean, it's mostly good. It's not perfect. But I like what they're trying to do with it. I like one of the issues I always had with CP, and it's not just in this game but other games too. When you have this kind of system, is you just throw in a lot of percentage based increases, bonuses, right? So like now you're at champion point rank and you get some more ranks and you do 10% more damage, or you take 10% less damage, or you have 10% more recovery. And so it's kind of boring, like that type of development, because it's just the same build, it's just stronger, right? So um the problem with CP 1.0 is pretty much every bonus was like that. It was just a percentage based increase. And so in terms of like build diversity, there really wasn't any, because it was just making builds stronger. So I like the fact that they took a big chunk of that power and they put it back into character stats. So like characters have more health now, you have more magicka, stamina, you have more spell damage, weapon damage. That's all on your base character. So there's going to be less of a focus on champion points moving forward. But I also really like that they thought outside of the box on some of them, not all of them, but there's some CP stars that do create different types of builds or give you different build options. So like some of my solo builds, if I don't have a lot of healing on the character, there's a CP star in the blue tree called Reaving, something Reaving, but basically it gives you like a heal back when you do direct damage. So it's almost like a little mini pale order ring on your character just for slotting that star. So that's one of those. Now I have something that's actually creating some diversity in terms of what I can do on my character. And they have other little ones like that. In the red tree, there's another one I like. I've been using a lot on some builds. Like if I'm just grinding experience, and I don't need to use my ultimate necessarily, there's another star in the red tree. It's called Strategic Reserve, that gives you health recovery based on how much ultimate you have remaining, like unspent ultimate. So if you don't use your ultimate and you're at max 500 ult, then you have like 1500 health recovery on your character. So that's nice. You don't even have to slot heal, like if you're just grinding experience. And so they're building in these kind of little mini like build ideas, right, that you can apply to your character. So I think it's really good if they can sort of build on that and keep adding to it. I know that's one thing they said about it, is it's a new system, but they want to build on it over time. So hopefully, they've added all those percentage based things. They're all there. So you have the direct damage, you have damage over time, you have AoE damage. If they can start adding in new ideas, new little things that players can do to kind of mix up their builds on top of what they've already done, then I think it'll just get better. So
Let's say you're one of the devs for the game and I come to you. First, I guess let's rewind. They initiated the Cyrodiil proc testing, no proc test, to see if the calculations, that's what was bogging down Cyrodiil, right? A lot of calculations happening, and are the proc sets part of the root of the problem? Let's say you're a dev for the game and I came to you and I said, I think the CP is causing a problem in Cyrodiil. It's the calculations, you're right, but it's not it's not just the proc sets, and then even some of the sets that are considered procs, that's why they're not allowed right now. And they're not, for all intent purposes, damage proc sets, but like Eternal Vigor, the 5-piece doesn't work. But what if we came to you and said, hey, it's a CP, it's this 10% here, the 3% there, and every time I do damage to you, now it has to take your CP into account and my CP into account instantaneously as that damage shows. What would be your answer? How do you fix that? What's your thoughts on, what's your idea on fixing, eliminating calculations like that?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you could eliminate them without, just gutting the system completely. I mean, I think they've tried to limit them. That's one of the thing I didn't mention was they built in, the 4 slottable stars for each tree. And so that's their way of limiting it, right? They're saying you can only have these 4 slots. And because there's only 4 active things, well, 12 technically, since there's only 12 active stars, that's only like 12 calculations per character that are happening. But you're right, there's all these other passive stars too in the system because you have damage reduction, you have increased like weapon damage, penetration. There's lots of passive stars too. So technically, there's a lot more still going on than the slotted stars. As far as not having any of that, you're pretty much you would just have to strip it down completely, and then I think it would be a lot less interesting.
Yeah. Would you run with just like add elemental damage to your character, or like when you initiate damage, kind of like an enchant, we already have this right now, but
Yeah.
here's lightning damage on everything you do, or here's fire damage, and it does a flat amount as opposed to base, or percentages, I guess. I don't know how I don't even know what you would do, but if they found that that was the problem, that the CP tree was the problem, like you had said earlier, you haven't been having a lot of problems in Battlegrounds. Battlegrounds are no CP. We do have proc sets in Battlegrounds right now, and outside of just getting desynced with a Magnum shot or a snipe or a flame clinch, they run pretty well. Is it because it's a smaller instance, or what's the
Yeah.
recipe for that?
Yeah, or maybe just not having CP active. I mean, I prefer Battlegrounds because there's no CP, but that's my experience playing for years, right? When CP was really overpowered in PvP and you had like unkillable builds. I mean, I know there's still unkillable builds in Battlegrounds, but much less so when you cut out the champion points, right?
Yeah. Speaking of unkillable builds, Icy, do you remember that Necro that we ran into last night in Imperial City? Where we had 20 people just banging on him and he wouldn't die.
Oh yes, yeah. We were fighting him underneath the flag.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's the first person I've run into that.
Nice.
Pretty impressive to have that many people. And I was on my Tiny Awesome, and Tiny Awesome can bring the heat, and it wasn't doing hardly anything to this guy. So he's figured out the recipe.
I will say we were all on Petsorks, and we were, I think, mostly trolling for the most part. So I'm sure if we were on our top-notch game and stuff, then we would have killed him. So that's just my hindsight 2020 looking back.
Yeah, we'll just say that it'll make us feel better about ourselves that it took 20 people to kill that guy. Yeah. So, how long have you been creating content, and like where did you start out at with your content? You had mentioned earlier that you had PvP. Could you kind of give us your life story for ESO content creating?
Sure. Yeah. I started build videos, I think 2018. Probably like March, April 2018. And I did do, I think my first one was the Stamina Nightblade PvP build. It was pretty bad. It was like a, snipe mixed with ambush, mixed with in cap, but it was fun. It was fun to play. So I did a couple PvP builds. I think I did like a Magicka Templar, like a beginner PvP build. That That was fun to play. That was when Dark Flare was really powerful, and I would play in BGs. So this was like right around when Dark Flare was just really strong. So you could like throw 2 Dark Flares, and since it was such a long range skill and it was channeled, it was delayed, they would both hit at like the same time, and then he'd throw like a javelin and then go with an execute, and that was pretty much it. But then from there, I kind of started branching out a little bit. I would do more guides. I think I had an early guide on like how to get skill points quickly, which is just like do public dungeons, get skill points. I remember that. So some of the comments were funny, just saying like, you took 10 minutes to explain this. It takes 30 seconds to. This should have been a 30-second video, or like get to the point faster. Um, so yeah, I would do guides and stuff. My first really popular guide, I think I did like a top 5 grind spots, like XP grind spots. And so that was a fun one, just kind of like roaming around looking for different places to grind XP that people don't really know about. I still do guides like that today. Those are still fun to do. And then I think gradually I got away from PvP. I did a little bit more PvE content. I think I noticed that PvE content was getting a little bit more views in terms of what I was doing. So I tried to just double down on what was successful to grow the channel. So if that ended up being, PvE pet sork build, I know I did a couple of those early on. Another one that was pretty successful was like solo builds. So like Magic Templar solo build, Magic Nightblade solo build, and then just whatever was successful, I would just do more of those. So um, that just went on, for a couple years. And then I think last year, 2020, the channel just really started growing a lot. I think one reason is just more players are coming to ESO. They're just figuring out, that ESO exists. Like, hey, there's this Elder Scrolls Online game. Let me check this out. And so there's always new players coming in. So really focusing, I think last year on like new player content and guides, like class guides, solo builds, that kind of stuff that's very like new player friendly, really helped me out in terms of like getting views, getting subscribers on the channel. So this year, kind of doing more of the same, updating builds and stuff. Last year, we added the website, so that's something that I was asked about for a long time, and I dragged my feet for forever because I didn't want to get involved in making a website. But after so many comments, I saw the value of it. Not everybody likes the video format. I mean, YouTube is great, but for something as in depth as a build guide for a game like this, sometimes you need to go back and reference things like, specific skills or morphs, or, what's the champion point loadout for 300 CP or whatever. So having some written content made sense. So we did the website last year. And yeah, things have been going really good. So I'm looking forward to this year and just building more content, trying out new things. This past like month or so, we've been really focusing on like grind builds. It's just something like different I'm trying to focus on, which is like if people want to grind CP, like what's the fastest build to do it with. So that's been going pretty good. So I've got a few more of those in mind. And then after those, I'll be kind of going around updating some prior stuff, some solo builds. I want to get back into hybrid builds pretty soon. Those are looking really good now in Flames of Ambition. And then lots more content with like companions and stuff coming up soon. So
Yeah. If you go back, boy, you hit the nail on the head. You said about a year ago, the channel really picked up, steam. If you go back to 1 year ago, you have the Ultimate ESO class guide, and that video for you has 843,000 views.
Crazy.
843,000 views. Congratulations. That's
And
awesome.
it's not like I did anything amazing. I mean, that video is just literally showing gameplay of all the classes and talking about them. But yeah, so that's when people were looking into ESO, like, what's this about? What are the classes? So if you can bring that type of content, there's a lot of potential for growth.
Yeah, you do a really good job with that. Are you um what is your content creation process, and do you handle everything from graphics to audio to everything? Like, what's this look like for you?
Yeah, I do everything. So it kind of depends. I mean, I have my like list of ideas always. I'm always adding video ideas to my list. So it could be like a guide or a build. I have separate lists. So like a list of guides, a list of builds. I have a list of like website only content. I try to do that as well. So it really just starts with an idea. Um, and then if it's a build, I will like theory craft it on the PTS for a while. I'll play with the different sets that give me what I want to achieve. And then if that works well, then I'll just record the video. And so with recording, it's just literally going through everything that somebody would ask about this. So, what are the skills? What are the passives? What are the gear sets? Champion points? Just making sure I hit, every single thing that a player would need to make it work. Um, record everything, cut it down, edit. I spend a lot of time on editing because I'm not that great at recording. That's something I need to work on, but usually, like, my recording will be probably 30 minutes, but it'll actually get cut down to more like 20. That's because I will say things wrong or I'll just like have to stop and think. And so that's one of the things I started doing like a long time ago is just cutting out those little spaces of dead air in my videos or those ums and uhs and things like that where it just kind of breaks the flow or it, you know, gets somebody disinterested to like click away from the video. I try to make my videos as like succinct and to the point as possible. So yeah, edit the video down and then usually spend some time on a thumbnail. Thumbnails are fun to do. I like spending time on those. I think thumbnails are really important too, as
Yes.
far as getting people interested to actually click the video and see what it's about. So um, I do spend a lot of time on those as well. And then pretty much put everything together with the website. Usually that takes some additional time to create like a written guide to have all that same information, usually some additional information too, like different CP setups, different bar setups. Those go into the written guides. And then yeah, try to do that a couple times a week. And that's the formula.
Your thumbnails are beautiful. They're really well done.
Oh, thank
Good
you.
job.
Yeah, luckily there's a lot of good art for Elder Scrolls in general, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff available, but you're the one that's putting it together. They look really, really good.
Yeah.
So is this your full-time thing, or do you have a full-time job and you're doing this on the side? What's that look like? What's a day in the life of Hack the Minotaur look like?
Yeah, I have a full-time job. So usually for content, I'll either get up early, spend a couple hours in the morning before my job starts, and then maybe do like a recording early when I'm off work. We have dinner, family dinner, spend time with the kids and stuff. And then at night, usually I'll do some editing, an hour of editing or something like that. Um, Sometimes upload something, as I'm sleeping, because it just, YouTube takes a long time to upload stuff sometimes. So it's pretty much whenever I have time. And then weekends, obviously, weekends I usually get a little bit more time to like test things out or record a couple videos if I need to. But pretty much whenever I have time, thankfully my family's good about it. They're flexible. They support me taking the time that I need to make the content. So it all works out.
That's awesome. I'm high-fiving them. I think that's having that support team behind you that really cheers you on. Are your kids old enough to play ESO, or are they playing ESO? I know my 7-year-old, my 4-year-old, both of them are girls. They want to play ESO, and they're very curious on what I'm doing. But what about yours?
Yeah. Oh, they have played. My kids are 6 and 8 right now, so they sometimes they'll see me playing and want to join in, and I just let them take over if I can. Like if it's an easy build, like Magic Templar, puncturing sweeps. Oh yeah, they can just
Yeah.
they can just take it over for me. And
Yeah, I actually made the Magic Templar Wonder Woman build for my daughter so they could be Wonder Woman. So I know
yeah,
exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, it's perfect. Just make it easy build for them, and it's good to go. They that's not totally their thing. They're more into Nintendo. They have a Nintendo Switch, so they're more into like Mario and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, that's very cool, man. And like I said, the thumbnails are amazing. You do amazing content and pretty regularly too. So people can find a lot of information on your YouTube. You had mentioned hybrids, and what's your thoughts on hybrids right now? Like, I totally agree with you. I think hybrids are back, and
Yeah.
I'm exploring all these different ways to make hybrids right now. So, what's going on in your head with hybrids?
Well, yeah, it's I've done hybrids for a long time. I think the first time I saw a hybrid build was Christopher ESO. I don't know if you guys have seen his
Oh yeah, yeah,
PvP
he's
builds, but
everywhere.
back in the day, he used to do hybrid PvP builds, which were pretty cool. So that kind of got the concept started for me, and I started playing around with them. It's a lot of fun. The reason I like it is it kind of takes you back to when you were a brand new player. You're starting a new character in the game, and you don't have all the skills to pick from. So you just pick whatever random skill that you have. So you have like you have like 3 magic skills and 2 stamina skills. And it doesn't really matter because you're so low level that they all do like the same damage. But it's fun because you get to mix in the different, effects, the different skill lines, different weapons, whatever. So I think the hybrid playstyle is a lot of fun just to play in general, but it's never really been ideal, like in terms of DPS or sustain. I guess part of the problem was always the champion point system too. Because you're trying to do a hybrid, like an end game build or just a solo build or whatever. In champion points, everything was split. Like the majority of CP was split. So you had like your damage stars for stamina, and you had damage stars for magicka. You had penetration for stamina, separate penetration for magicka. You had separate critical, like everything was separate. So your hybrid build was like severely punished for being a hybrid because you had to split your 810 champion points or whatever you had in the middle to try to get as much stuff for your hybrid as you could. But what I really like about the CP 2.0 is most of the stuff now is for any type of build. So, precision, whatever it is for critical, that first star in the blue tree, that's both spell critical and weapon critical at the same time. Same thing for piercing. It's spell penetration and weapon penetration at the same time. For the damage stars, like deadly aim, biting aura, all that stuff, it's just damage. It's not magic based damage or stamina based damage. It's both combined. So they fixed a lot of that stuff when you're looking at champion points, which were really holding hybrids back. If we look at like last year, a couple years ago, all of that stuff is more viable now because the CP is not divided in that way. Yeah, there's still a couple of stars, which if you really drill down, there's like specific physical and magical damage stars, but the majority of it is for any type of build. So that's kind of the first thing when you're looking at Flames of Ambition. CP really supports hybrid builds. Now, in terms of like the buffs in the game, that was always an issue too. You had like major fracture, major breach. Some classes only had major fracture. So you had to get like major breach from a different skill. You'd have to run like, a sword and board skill or like your stamina DK. Noxious breath, you'd have to run that, and you'd have to run elemental drain on your back bar to get both. It was just like a lot of work to build a hybrid, but now a lot of those buffs have been combined into one. Like penetration has major breach now, which is both physical and spell penetration. So a lot of that streamlining in the buff system has been really good. A lot of like the damage buffs, like sorcerer, dragon knight, most classes that have that major damage buff, it gives you both major brutality, major sorcery. So like your buffs are all good to go. The last thing that was kind of really holding hybrids back was the sets. So a lot of the sets now, when you look at the values, it's giving you both, right? It's 657, whatever it is, critical chance now, right? Instead of like weapon critical or spell critical. A lot of sets are giving you weapon damage, spell damage. So everything's really in a good place now this year in terms of you're not going to be missing out on too much. The only thing you're really missing out on is like max stats if you decide to go with a hybrid. But that's also been improved this year because you have more stats, right? Every character has like 5,000 more health and whatever, how much more magicka and stamina. So stats are less of an issue this year as well. So I think it's looking really good. I definitely want to dive into it soon and start updating my builds. I had hybrid builds for every class that I came out with. I think it was last year. So hopefully I'll be updating those real soon.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Before this CP adjustments or changes, you could do, like I pretty much exclusively do PvP, and at this point I've leveled over 100 characters, I would say. And
Wow.
there's a maturation process with a class and a specific play style. Like I'm always trying something new, and because I do the thematic builds, we're going to be Black Panther, or we're going to be Deadpool, or we're going to be Hulk, Hulk smash, or we're going to be whoever it is. In low level BGs, you could pull off hybrid pretty easily, because like you were saying, the damage was there for those abilities. But then right between level 30 and CP, it started falling off, and or normalizing, or whatever you want to call it. And that's where the hybrids started to really suffer. And so to see someone like Christopher ESO running around and being competitive and dangerous on a hybrid, it's a testament to something that's, he accomplished something there, because they're not easy to be competitive with a hybrid build pre-CP. And like you said, I think we're going to see some competitive PvP hybrid builds once everybody gets their feet under them with the champion points. And I leveled some of my characters with that thought process. Like Hulk Smash was using some magicka based abilities. Well, he's running around with 6k weapon damage and 5k spell damage in low level BGs, and then that starts falling off, and then I got to put him on the shelf, under the old CP tree, because I can't play him the way I want competitively. Well, now I'm going to be able to. And so I think it's super exciting to see what I'm going to be watching your hybrids real closely to see what you're doing, and like expanding my mind on, what hybrids are capable of. So it's really
it's to have Yeah, and just to have the right expectation. I mean, I don't think a hybrid build should be able to do necessarily like the best damage compared to like a pure like stamina or magicka build, but they should still be viable in a sense. So, yeah, you might lose a little bit of damage, but are you going to have more fun playing a hybrid? Probably, yeah. Like you're going to have a lot more options and different play styles that you can choose from. So, yeah, it's going to be good.
Yeah,
Do you? I got a quick one. So with I guess with a hybrid build, I guess we'll talk PvE. How competitive do you think like a hybrid parse would, I guess like scale compared to like like a mag user or a stam user?
I haven't tested it in the new patch, right? But previously, it was pretty bad. Like you would get, I don't know, maybe like 40k DPS if you're lucky, which compared to like a top end, DPS build, that's probably half, right? Like half the DPS,
Hmm.
which is way lower than it should be, right? But a lot of the barrier to that was the old CP system and how you couldn't fully spec into damage because half of your skills wouldn't get the damage because you're just spread too thin. So I don't know how it's going to look in the current system. I'm assuming it'll be a lot better, but it's still it won't be top tier necessarily, but it should be better.
Nice.
Going back to the content creating and stuff for your channel, did you follow any creators, any other content creators as you were starting this process? And what was the thought process on starting your channel?
Oh yeah, definitely. Before I started creating videos, I would watch videos like all the time. Deltia was a big one. Would watch his stuff all the time. Another one I mentioned, Christopher ESO for PvP. Gilliam the Rogue, right? Who now works at ZeniMax. I would watch his videos multiple times, and not just as a content creator because I wasn't at that point, but just learning how to play the game. His videos were like so good at that, like just teaching different like just all the ins and outs about skills, right? He had this really good series, Let's Talk, where he would go over a specific skill line and I would just like I was waiting for the next one so I could learn the next skill line, right? Because I think at that point I had been playing ESO probably for a couple years, but I only had like maybe one or two characters, right? I had done pretty much everything on those characters. And so at that point, I was getting a little bit bored, right, with my characters. And so I wanted to start branching out and do like new characters, new classes, new builds, whatever. So I would just try to learn everything about all the classes, all the skill lines, everything having to do with different builds. And so watching those guys early on would give me ideas to try out my own builds. And so for a while, I was just making builds just for myself. Like, hey, what can I make now? Can I make a Templar? Can I make a solo Magsork pet build? Let me try out these different things. And so I was doing that for a while, and then it just sort of led into, well, how about I'll do a video on this because this is really fun to play. Maybe some people want to check this out. So it kind of naturally progressed that way, I guess.
That's so cool. Well, like it just started on a whim, right? You're like, hey, let's just see how it goes. And next thing you know, you're, you know, 88 88,000 subscribers in. So congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Do you have advice for other potential content creators or up and comers? Like, would you have advice for them on starting their channel or growing?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've learned a lot. This YouTube is a really fun hobby. Like I kind of have seen it as a hobby over the years. I guess it's more like a kind of like a business too. It depends on how you want to think about it, but just kind of the hobby aspect of being a YouTuber, I did a lot of research. My initial videos really were not that good. I've actually deleted a couple of my first videos because that's just how bad they were. So I learned a lot over time, over the 2, 3 years that I've been doing this. And there's so much you can learn, whether it's, thumbnail composition, titles, what kind of titles work, length, video length, how long should your video be? Um, yeah, there's a lot in terms of just like general stuff. Um, I would say being consistent is one thing. So I don't think I've taken a break in 3 years more than like a week, maybe 2 weeks off. So I'm consistently putting out a video. At first, it was just once a week. Now I do 2 to 3 a week pretty consistently. So that, the consistent part of it is really what helps you grow over time. So consistency is big. That's probably one of the main things. Um, yeah, there's just so much. It really depends on what you want to do too. Like if your focus is on growth, then there's some things you should be doing. If your focus is on, just connecting with your audience, there's other things you can be doing. So it really just depends on what your goal is for content creation.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, the most important thing is just get started, right? Like it's never going to be perfect. It's never, like you said, you went and deleted your first couple videos. I probably should do that too. I literally have some untitled videos up, of just recording and seeing, how's this even work?
Yeah, and like awful like microphone quality and just saying stupid stuff into the mic. Like just do it. Just do all that stuff. I mean, um you might get some negative comments, whatever. That's just part of the process. So just do it pretty much.
I
Oh,
I
go ahead.
was so I think I like the aspect of having those really crappy videos in the beginning, because when you look at a bunch of other just content creators in general, and if you go back to the beginning of like what was their first video, you can kind of see that evolution, that progression where they went from being trash to
Yeah.
the stallion that they are today. And
Yes,
like you kind of,
stallion. That's
yeah,
the
trash to stallion. And it's kind of cool to see that progression.
journey.
Yeah.
It is, and you see that with tons of content creators. That's the journey, for
So
sure.
I feel like when you delete your videos or delete the older ones, we kind of lose out a bit on that
Yes.
Perspective.
that little thing. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, you did lose out on those first couple, but they were bad, trust me.
Well,
yeah.
like I said, if people go and they look at my videos, you'll literally see some untitled with no commentary, no mic. It's just recording a video and
Mhm.
putting it up on YouTube. And I was like, yep, there it is. And we just left it. I was like, whatever. Like, we'll figure this out, from titles to thumbnails to search engine optimization to
Yeah.
we're going to figure all this out along the way. There it
You
is.
do,
For the
yeah,
world
you
to see.
do. There's so much to figure out. I'm thinking, like, eventually, I wanna do maybe a second channel that's just focused on content creation. I think that would be really interesting because there's so much that you can learn and you can teach people, about making content on YouTube. Not just YouTube, it could be Twitch streaming or, just gaming content in general.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I'm full support if you do that. Like, I could send people your way.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see. I've said that once I get to 100,000 subscribers, which hopefully is this year, that I'm going to start a second channel. So I've been looking at different ideas for that. So that might be one.
That is awesome. Um, Going back to it, you had talked about some criticism and stuff like that. How do you handle negative comments or trolling?
Oh, You know, it's awesome, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, but when you get trolls, it's actually a sign that your content is blowing up, like it's growing. So basically, what happens, like on YouTube, for example, is if your videos kind of meet the requirements for YouTube to push your content out, whether that's like you have good engagement, you have good like ratio, average view duration, things like that. YouTube will push out your videos to like a wider audience. So you always have like your core audience who's gonna watch whatever you publish, right? That's like your core viewers. And they give you the good, likes, and they give you the positive comments, which is all awesome. It's great. But once you start progressing and your videos kind of meet these different benchmarks for YouTube, YouTube will start recommending your video beyond that group of people that know your content and love your content. So once you get to that stage, you're going to start getting people showing up on your comments page, like talking crap about you, essentially. And you're going to be like, who is this person? Like, person has never commented on my channel. And here they are popping in and, saying all these bad things about my video. Well, that's because it's like, it's expanding, right? Your audience is expanding. So the way I think of troll comments is it's a good thing in that sense, because this is somebody who hasn't seen your content before, but now when they logged into YouTube, it was put in front of them. So you must be doing some things right.
Right. And the likelihood that they're subscribed to you is probably pretty low, considering they're not cut from the same cloth, right?
Right. They're not going to be a subscriber, so they're going to go away.
Yeah. So they'll end up watching your video just because it was in the recommended section on YouTube.
Yeah. You can be like, thanks for the view.
Yeah, yeah. Or thanks for the interaction, the thumbs down and the comments that are driving the interaction. And now YouTube's like, oh, look at all the comments on this video. We should probably recommend it to more people.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's interesting. So you kill them with kindness and thank them for coming.
Yeah, or you just mute, ignore.
Yeah.
There's always
I know
that option.
Deltia, you brought him up earlier. I asked him that too. Like, hey, what do you do with the trolls or whatever? And he goes, I don't even read my comments. So there you go. I don't even read my comments. So
It's funny. Yeah, I do read most of my comments. That's another thing you can do if you're trying to grow your channel, is just respond to every. That's something that I started doing a couple years ago. Just respond to everybody if they have a question. Like, just be there with a response, and that will kind of create that engagement with them, and they'll come back, to future videos. So definitely respond as much as you can. If it's a troll, I don't respond typically, but other than that, yeah.
Yeah, I'm bad about that. Icy told me not to respond to him, but I'm like, nope, we're going to use this as an educational moment for that person.
Yeah, occasionally, yeah, I will. If somebody says something totally like wrong, then you need to set them straight for sure.
Yeah. So if we had to look into a crystal ball, like we'll call it the meta crystal ball, and we've got companions on the way, hybrids theoretically could be super strong right now, and I think we're still figuring that out. But the meta crystal ball, what do you think the game's going to look like by the end of the year?
Yeah, it's going to be real interesting with companions, especially. I think one question that people are asking right now is, will I be able to see other players' companions if I'm not like in the same group with them? And I would assume yes, because they're combat NPCs, right? So if your companion is in combat with with a mob in the world, other people will most likely see it. So are we going to be like absolutely overrun in like cities and overlands with just companions everywhere? And are they going to look the same? I think that's like the main question people have. But as far as like how strong they are, I'm guessing they won't be super strong. I guess they could be I mean, we really don't know at this point. When we looked at the abilities at the live reveal a couple days ago, they didn't look super strong. And remember, every ability has a cooldown. Some of them are really long cooldowns, like a 16-second cooldown. So I don't feel like they're going to be super strong. I think it's going to be more utility focused. That's why I said maybe a tank or a healer is going to be the best option. Um, because companion NPCs aren't really new. Like if you guys have done any of the like storyline quests where you have a companion with you, they're pretty bad. Like they don't really
Yeah.
do much. So I can't imagine it being insanely overpowered going from these really like, you know, very weak NPCs that we've seen in the game to like these like juggernaut companions that are going to like tank everything for you and heal your whole group or like out damage you. I don't think it's going to be to that point. So I think it's going to be more of like a utility thing, kind of like, Antiquities, that system last year. It's a fun system. It's engaging for a little bit, but it's not going to take over the entire game, every instance of the game. Companions are not going to be PvP. You can't take them into solo arenas, so they're somewhat limited already. So we'll just have to see. I mean, I think it's going to be fun for a lot of people who aren't like meta players, who don't care about the meta necessarily and just want to have fun playing, with their companion. I think it's going to bring in a lot of people, engage a lot of players from that perspective. But as far as like shifting the meta, our trial is going to be just a tank and a bunch of companions. I don't think so.
Yeah. Do you think this is going to open the door to companion relations, like relationships and things like that?
Yeah, they've said that's kind of the goal. Maybe not the main goal of companions, but that's something that they want to do is these relationships. And there's a system of likes and dislikes is what they called it. So basically, um, your companion is following you around, but they see how you engage with other NPCs. Like, do you steal from them? Do you give them a handout? Whatever, you can increase your rating, whatever you want to call it, with the companion, so that they like you more, and then unlock further storyline, further quest with the companion. I think maybe romance options. I'm not sure if they talked about that completely, but I think that's the goal, is to have it be as like true to life, like as interactive as possible.
Do you think they'll introduce something where you can name your companion, or is that already a thing? Like, can you name your companion and then go into the style parlor or whatever and change their looks? What do you know so far
Yeah,
as
I
far as
don't,
that
I
goes?
don't think they've said yet if you can change the look. The name, I feel like the name is maybe set because there was a couple interviews about that where Rich actually gave names to them. But maybe you can change it. And then as far as like their actual physical appearance, I don't know. Maybe we know that you can do outfit styles with them and costumes. They can wear like any of your costumes. You can customize their outfit, at an outfit station. So there'll be some customizing there.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's too bad you can't change the name, because then I would totally make Batman, and then I would make my companion Robin,
Yes,
and we'd just run around and
that's an
crime
awesome
fight.
idea.
So we talked about the proc set situation, PvP, a while back. What's going on with proc sets in the PvE world? I think you're happy. Proc sets are fine in PvE, right? It's not affecting other players. Um, do you use
Yeah.
proc sets for a lot of your builds?
Some builds it is appropriate for a proc set. Like the recent builds I've been doing, my CP grind builds, I do proc sets on a lot of those because with that type of content, whether it's like overland or like solo arenas, enemies have very little health. And so you can gap close into them, hit a proc set, and they're dead. And you just move on to the next enemy, right? And so it's very good for that type of build. If you want to grind CP or if you want to kill things quickly, they don't have a lot of health. Proc sets are really good. It can be a lot of fun to play with those too. It gives you a lot of build options and diversity. In like end game content, like trials and dungeons, you don't see them quite as much because honestly, just raw stats usually is what you want because of all the buffs that you have at end game. Most of those aren't going to affect proc sets. So they really start to taper off, when you look at high level content. But I think they're pretty much right where they need to be in terms of PvE. They're fun to use, and they're like situational for different builds.
Yeah, I like the proc sets. Especially in a PvE, you get to see a lot of really cool effects, and you feel super powerful when you go into a dungeon and you just blow up half the room. So,
Yeah, you've got like your pet sets and stuff, like Ma the Infernal, or you have different pets you can summon. That's pretty cool.
yeah. With all your testing and what you've been doing since the Flames of Ambition and the new CP, what's your thoughts on class balance right now? Where do you think the game sits as far as balancing?
I think it's good. They also did race passive balance, so I think that actually this patch it was more about race passive balance changes than class. There was a couple like class changes, but mostly they were kind of balancing the races against each other so that performance wise, what race you picked, it's really not going to make much of a difference. Everything is pretty well balanced at this point. So I think for classes like the rest of this year, what I want to see is not balance so much, it's more diversity. It's more like build options. Um, so some things that they did, I guess it was last year, they talked about like how a class has an identity, right? Like this idea, this concept of class identity, which used to be a lot stronger in ESO. It used to be that certain classes were good at specific things. Like when the game first started, best healer, Templar, best tank, Dragonite. Like it was very like cut and dry that way, right? Because they had specific passives, or like Templars had the best heal in the game at that point. So if you wanted to play a healer, get a Templar. Like it was very simple. But what they did over time was they basically made every class able to do every role, which is kind of unique. Like I don't know a lot of games that do it like that way. Like typically one class is good for like a certain play style and another class is good for different play style. ESO took a different route where they want every class to do everything pretty much equally well, right? Which I guess is fine. I mean, I think it's worked out for them. They have what, like 18 million players now, so they're doing all right. It wasn't a bad thing necessarily for them, but what you end up with is a lot of classes that feel the same at this point. Like there's not this strong sense of class identity when all the other classes can do the same thing just with a different skill, right? So they're basically carbon copies of each other, just different colors, right? Some people think of it like that. So something that they need to look at this year, hopefully, is, well, how can we make classes feel from a play style standpoint more unique? What are some unique things about this class that we can really highlight, dig into, make it feel more like you're playing a sorcerer, right? Rather than just generic damage dealer. So that's something I hope they look into more.
Yeah. If you were to pick one ability in the game right now from any class, one ability that you would want to adjust, what would that be?
Stone Fist.
You don't like the animation? You don't like it, just all of it? Get rid of it? What's your thoughts?
No, I mean, it's debatable, I guess. That whole thing was like, Dragon Knights didn't have a stamina DPS skill, right? Because Magicka Dragon Knights have whip, right? So why didn't they just get like a stamina version of whip. They gave him a rock instead. like, is that really fit the theme of a Dragon Knight? I don't know. So I kind of wish they would have done something. The weird thing about that too is it's a completely different skill line. Like if you look at the newer classes like Necromancer, Warden, their DPS skills are in the same skill line and they have a Magicka and a Stamina morph, right? Like if you look at, let's just say Warden or Necromancer, Blast Bones, there's Magicka morph and a Stamina morph. It's a DPS skill, so you choose whichever one based on your setup. But the only one of the few classes that doesn't have that is Dragon Knight. So you have Flame Whip. That's the Ardent Flame skill line. You have to go to a separate skill line to get Stone Fist, morph it to Stamina for the Dragon Knight. It's just weird, confusing.
Yeah. So I feel the same way. Is there no one else feels the same way too? Why do we not have a Stamina Whip right now? Why are there two Magicka morphs to whip, you know? And I asked him, I'll ask you, what if we were to just combine the two whips right now? Because they're both magic, and maybe dumb it down a little bit, you know, but combine the effect of both of them. And if you happen to whip somebody when they're immobilized or stunned, you get the heal, you know, on that, and a good like 33% more damage, like it's a crystal frag that procs, you know, on a sorcerer. And if you're using any other abilities in that skill line, Ardent Flame or whatever skill line, you're also increasing your mag or your spell damage, sorry, you know, for an even better whip. And then let's put a Stamina Whip in there. Would you take that change?
Oh yeah, I would. I don't think they're going to do it. I don't, because they've already gone so far with it. Like they've made new animations for Stone Fist. They changed all the passives in the Earth and Heart skill line to go with the new Stone Fist. Like they did a lot of work on that. I just think it was in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I would like to see Stone Fist turn into kind of like the Hulk tsunami or Hulk smash where he hits the ground and maybe the ground goes bang 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 bang, you know, like ripples in front of him.
Oh yeah,
Like a conal effect.
that would be awesome actually.
Yeah, that would be a really cool, you know, turn Stone Fist into that. I feel like DKs don't have very many ranged. Everything feels melee range to them, you know, Magicka and Stamina. And the only time you get ranged options is going to be, well, Stone Fist is a ranged option, so I guess that kind of goes against it, but they feel very melee oriented type class, and it would be cool to have more range options.
Yep, for sure.
Do you think that all skills should have a Magicka and a Stamina morph, or you think it's just dependent on if it makes sense thematically?
Yeah, that's a good question. Most skills do at this point, right? Like I'm trying to think what else. They even went to Crystal Frags and made a Stamina morph of Crystal Frags for the Sorcerer. Nightblade has Magicka Stam. You know, they have Execute. They have the Spammable. What else? Templar has Jabs, Sweep. You have Javelin has two versions. The only thing that's different with Templar is they get the Magicka Execute, right? But then, you know, Stamina has weapon-based executes. I'm trying to think of other examples where there's no Stam equivalent.
So there's like a dev that's got Dragon Knight under lock and key, and he's like, "You're not touching my Dragon Knight." Like, you know, everybody's like, "It's time. We need to get the Stamina Whip going," and he's like, "Nope, not gonna happen."
Yeah, it's like why? Why? Is it because it's if a whip is a physical weapon, so it should be a weapon skill? Like, who cares? It's a video game. Just just do it.
Yeah.
No, it's gonna break my immersion. We can't have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I tried the Stone Fist on my Hulk smash. I was using that instead of D swing, and I got a video. This was quite a while ago, but it was just a Hulk smash teaser. And when I'm leveling these guys low level, I'm trying different play styles, and I was using that as my primary spammable, and it was basically, the first time you activate it, it does the AoE foot stomp, and I was like, oh, well, that's kind of Hulkish, like
Yeah.
stomp on the ground, do this AoE damage around you, and then I guess I could picture Hulk throwing rocks at people, just picking up boulders and throwing them at people. So I was like, yeah, we'll try and use it as my spammable, and uh, it's really weird weaving that, like D-swing with a medium or light attack feels better. It's easier to weave that when you're throwing this rock. Then you can't if they're ranged, and they're running away from you. It's just throw a rock, expend stamina. Can't light attack or heavy attack them to get stamina back. So now I throw a rock again. Now I throw a rock again, and so it ended up not sustaining as well as I would have liked. But I could do damage to people that were outside melee range. So I don't know.
Yeah. It does damage. Like it's not a bad skill. It can do some good damage. It's just kind of weird, I guess.
Yeah. I want to see that stamina whip.
Well, actually, I was just thinking about it with the hybrid stuff we were talking about earlier, and now that we're talking about the DK and stuff. I mean, you could probably just run a hybrid DK, and I guess pretend that you're doing a stamina whip the whole time, while
Yeah.
you're running like with a with a maybe a D swing into a lava whip, but just pretend like, oh yeah, I got my stamina whip build and everything. Like it's pretty cool. I got like 6,000 weapon damage. And I'm using a lava whip, so probably could work now.
Yeah. Yeah, you can make it work.
Yeah. So if you were able to add 2 new classes, what would those classes be? Like if they contacted you tomorrow and said,
Oh man.
we want to add 2 classes, what
I
would you
did a
throw at
whole
them?
video on this recently. So I got one. I got my answer. It's a monk class.
Heck yeah, sign me
If
up.
you play Black Drake Villa, which is one of the new dungeons, you will see the monk. He's the final boss of the dungeon. He's already in the game.
Yeah, they have the
So
animations for it and all. I
yeah,
watched that video, and it was 1 month ago. It's called The Next Class, question mark, looking into the future of Elder Scrolls Online. And you got 72,000 views on that 1 month ago.
yeah. Hey, people want new classes all the time. But that that one in particular, I think would be really cool. The models are already there, like you said, the animation. So there's like roundhouse kicking, there's punches, there's strikes. He summons like elemental weapons. He has like whirlwind abilities. So in my mind, it wouldn't be like just a monk, with like punches and kicks, but it would be more like an elementalist
An
monk.
avatar.
Yeah, yeah. So kind of summoning like wind or rain or something in addition to like the physical capabilities and stuff. So yeah, I think it would fit. I think you could do a lot with that.
I want to
Um,
pre-order right now. Where do I send my money?
yeah, see? What else? I don't know.
What
What
if
are
I'll,
you
you
could play
thinking?
as a Minotaur? Would you
Oh, yeah.
introduce that race in a Minotaur class, or I guess that would just be a race, wouldn't it?
A race, that would be awesome. I'd be down for that for sure.
do you think if they were going to introduce this monk class, you think that would be a perfect opportunity to also introduce a new weapon skill line where you can actually have unarmed abilities and actually just punch people and kick people and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would work. The only thing you'd have to think about is the weapon, like the actual gear sets, right? Because gear sets have weapons. So does that mean like every set now has brass knuckles or something to get the 5-piece bonus?
That's what I was thinking, and I
Like
think,
guards, like hand guards or something?
yeah, and I was thinking they'd probably have to do obviously all of the style pages, and I think there's about 70, 80, or 90 different motifs for everything in the game. So that's a lot of brass knuckles they'd have to redesign and stuff to just introduce a new weapon line.
Do you think that they introduce 3? If let's say it's monk, they do the brass knuckles, and that does direct damage and it does blunt damage. Then they introduce a glove or something to that effect, and maybe that does. Maybe the brass knuckles does a different type of damage effect, but the gloves do a different type of damage effect. And then there's like kind of the Wolverine type, things that do puncture or pierce or slash damage. Like if you're going to introduce a monk, do you think you give them three different, like if you ran as a dual wield Nightblade right now, you could run any combination of maces, swords, or daggers. Should you have that same option on a monk?
Yeah. I guess you would need some options like that for sure. I mean, I don't know about adding the problem with the game at this point is there's already more physical weapons than there is magical weapons, right? So if
Right.
we're stacking even more physical weapons, it's going to overload it even more. What the game really needs is some magicka based weapons. And I was so sure like this was going to be the year. And it was funny. I was watching the trailer for Flames of Ambition, and I was like, this is it. Because like literally two NPCs in that trailer use like one-handed rune style, right? Like where they're holding something and they have like a spell in their other hand. Like
Yeah.
it's seriously in the trailer like multiple times. And I was like, all right, this is it. They're about to unveil this one-handed rune skill line for Magicka builds, but it didn't happen. I was really sad.
Yeah. Yeah, because then I can make Gandalf. So we got to make this
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, I think if they don't do a skill, they don't do a class next year, they need to do a weapon skill for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's tons of melee stuff right now, so a new magical line would make a lot of sense. So
Yeah, it'd be nice if they did like a trifecta where it would be a new weapon skill line, a new class, and a new race. That'd be kind of
Oh
cool.
man, that would be awesome. That would be a huge update.
yeah, so the race is going to be Minotaur. They contact you and say, "Hey, what should the racial passives be for this Minotaur? What would you put?"
Oh man, that's a good question. Wow. Let me think about that. Oh, I don't know. They would have to be like tanky for sure, but there's Minotaur shamans and stuff too. If you go to like Hughesbane, like actual casters too. So maybe weapon spell damage, right? Like high elves have it now, and orcs have it actually too. With the race updates, they have weapon and spell damage together. So that would probably be one. Um, what about like carry capacity? That's never been done
Oh, yeah, that's a good
because
one.
they're big, right? Maybe like 50 extra carry capacity or something.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, we'll see a lot of Minotaur crafters running
Oh,
around.
that'd be awesome. See?
Yeah. What about a soft enrage? Like if they fall under 30% health or something like that, they get minor heroism.
Oh,
or
that would be
major
cool.
heroism.
That would be cool. See, we need more race passives like that are actually more dynamic and like you can make use of them at certain times under certain instances.
What about if they're sprinting? Only when they're sprinting, they're immune to crowd control effects, kind of like snow treaders or
Oh
something.
wow.
The opposite of snow treaders.
That would be super overpowered.
Yeah, yeah. Well, then Icy could make his juggernaut.
Yeah.
Yeah, with a bull ring and everything, or a bull nose ring. Yeah.
Yep.
So, did you have any topics or questions for us? Did you have any videos that you want to mention for the audience to take a look at?
Nothing specific. Yeah, I have new videos every week. So yeah, if anybody's looking for, ESO news or, builds, I really don't do like meta builds. I try to do things that are new and interesting, other than just like the same old build that's been around forever. So if that's something you want to check out, then check out the channel.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm trying to figure that out. How do you not run meta and still be competitive in PvP? So that's where I spend a lot of my time, and why I level so many characters, and then I get to in game and I'm like, man, I just really can't figure this one out. I cannot be competitive in game. Lots of fun to level, really fun to level, and then I get to end game and it's just not competitive. But with the new CP changes, maybe that will be different. You'd mentioned a website, and we know that you're on YouTube. What are all the ways that people can contact you? Like Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch? Like, what's all the ways they can contact you?
So best way would be Twitter right now. So at hack Minotaur without the. I post fairly often on Twitter too. So sometimes I'll post like what I'm working on, like some clips from a build or something. I'll put those up there. Email if you have questions about a build. Just hacktheminotaur@gmail.com. You can send me questions there. And yeah, just check out the YouTube stuff. Check out the website for written guides. That's pretty much all there is right now.
Okay, that's awesome. How, if somebody wants to help support the channel, what's the best ways they can do that right now? Do you have merchandise available, a tip jar, Patreon? Like, how can people reach out to you and help you do this?
Yeah, so we don't do Patreon, but we do have channel membership through YouTube. So that's something that I've been pushing recently. So we do have different like tiers of membership. So our tier 1 is just a basic like shout out, like, thanks for supporting me. Tier 2 is when you start unlocking like some cool rewards. So we have members only videos. We actually have like a library of build videos and stuff that's only for members. So it's pretty interesting. So that'd be just the main way. If you're interested, you can go to YouTube and click on the join button.
That's awesome. So what we'll do is in the descriptions, we will get a link to his website, and we'll get a link to the YouTube channel and then we'll get a link to all these different ways that you guys can contact him, and it'll be good. Did you have anything else, Icy, today?
No, I think we should be all set. Just a reminder for everybody listening, we are also on Anchor. So if you would prefer to listen to just the audio version, we have a link to Anchor down in the description. So feel free to click on that. And any final words anybody would like to say before we depart?
I'm just super happy that Hack was able to join us, because, like he said, it's been a couple months in the making, and here we are. So, and I'm just really impressed with, like, you're doing all this on your YouTube channel, and the thumbnails are beautiful, and the content's awesome, and I don't know, just keep being awesome.
Cool. Thank you guys. That's great. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it for sure.
Awesome. And with that, we'll see you guys on the next one. See ya.
See ya. You're gonna say bye-bye, Argonians.
Bye bye, Rogonian.